The Humiliated Father II, Part 4 of 4. We could go further in asking, after this ending, what the poet means, and specifically on the question of where he is at himself in his thinking when he constructs for us what could well be called, correctly speaking, now that I have told it to you in my own way, this strange comedy. At the heart of the Claudelian trilogy, just as at the beginning there was a tragedy that caved the roof in, that went beyond anything as a possibility, as a demand imposed on the heroine and at the place, at the end of the first play, occupied by her image. At the end of the second play, there can only be the total obscurity of extreme derision, to such an extent that there are certain echoes in the final analysis that can seem fairly distasteful, insofar as, for example, the Jewish position is found to be, we're not really sure why, implicated. For the emphasis is put on Sichelle's feelings. Sichelle articulates what her position in life is. We have to proceed without any more reluctance in relation to this thematic element in Claudel's work, for, all the same, I do not know of anyone who has ever imputed to Claudel feelings that we could in any way consider to be suspect. I mean that the grandeur of the ancient law, more than respected by him, exalted, has never ceased to inhabit the slightest character that, in his dramaturgy, could be related to it, and every Jew, in essence, is for him related to it, even if it is as a Jew who finds themselves precisely rejecting it, this ancient law, and saying that it is the end of all these old laws that he wishes for, to which he aspires, and that what he is aiming for is the sharing out amongst everyone of this something that alone is real, and that is jouissance. This is in effect Sichelle's language, and it is as such that she presents herself to us before the murder, and even more afterwards, when she offers to Louis de Coutfontaine the love that, it is revealed, she has always had for him. Isn't this yet another problem that is proposed to us in this strange arrangement? I see that I have allowed myself to be drawn in, and I did have to do it, to telling you the central story of Hard Bread. In sum, I'm not going to do much more today than offer this up to you, a play that perhaps will be performed again, that has been performed a few times, and which it can be said that it is not badly constructed, and that I can't say I'm not attached to. Does it not seem to you that, on seeing it culminate after this strange incident, you find yourself there in front of a figure, ballet figure or scenario figure as one says, of such a number that it essentially proposes itself to you in a form that is truly unprecedented in its opacity, from the fact that it only appeals to your interest at the level of being the most total enigma possible? Time does not allow me, not in any way, to broach what would allow us to resolve it, but understand that if I am proposing to you, or if I simply make the remark that it isn't possible not to include such a construction in not just the century, in the decade in which the Oedipus complex came to light in human thought, understand why I am bringing it in here, and what, with the solution that I think I am going to provide, justifies me in spending so much time on it, going into it in so much detail before you, the Father. If, at the beginning of analytic thought, the Father had come in this form, in which the comedy is exactly done in such a way that it enables us to bring to light all the scandalous traits, if Freud had to articulate as the origin of the law a drama and a figure of whom it is enough to see it carried forward into a contemporary scene for you to gauge not simply the criminal character but also the possibility of characterial decomposition, even to abjection, as I said earlier, this is the problem. What is it in which this has been necessitated? By the only thing that justifies us analysts in our research, and which is also very much our object. What is it that renders it necessary for this image to be on humanity's horizon, if it is not its consubstantiality with the recognition, the implementation of the dimension of desire? In other terms, this, that we always tend to push further back to the horizon, even to deny in our practice, paradoxically more and more, we other analysts, the place of the Father. Why? But simply because it gets erased in relation to every way in which we lose sight of the meaning and direction of desire, where our activities in relation to those who confide in us tend to be about giving it, this desire, I don't know what kind of soft halter, I don't know what kind of soporific, I don't know what form of suggestion for bringing it back to need. And this is exactly why we see more and more and more at the heart of this other that we evoke in our patients, the mother. There is unfortunately something that resists. It's that this mother, we call her castrating. And why? Thanks to what is she? We know very well in our practice, and it's this that is the cordon that keeps us in contact with this dimension that must not be lost. It's this. At the point where we are, and at the perspective point that is reduced to the same cut as our own, it's that the mother is so much more castrating when she is not busy castrating the father. It is to the extent, and I beg you to refer back to your clinical experience here, that the mother completely occupied in castrating the father, this exists whether we see it or not, or there may very well not be one to castrate, but if that is the case, there wouldn't be anything further to do to turn the mother into the castrating function. If there wasn't this possibility, even neglected or absent, the maintenance of the dimension of the father, the drama of the father, this function of the father, around which you can very well see how what is important to us in the transference position, for the moment, is stirred up for us. Nor can we know very well, operate in our position as analysts as Freud operated, taking up the position of the father in the analysis. And this is what stupefies us about his way of intervening, and it is for this reason that we no longer know where to shove ourselves, because we have not learnt how to re-articulate from this starting point what our own position has to be. As a result, we spend our time saying to our patients, you see us as a bad mother, which all the same is not the position that we should adopt either. What I am looking into in front of you, the path I am trying to put you back on, with the help of the Claudelian drama as you will see, is to put castration back at the heart of the problem. Because castration and its difficulties are identical to what I will call the constitution of the subject of desire as such. Not the subject of need, not the frustrated subject, but the subject of desire. Because, as I have already gone on about it enough in front of you, castration is identical to this phenomenon that means that the object of his lack in desire, as desire is lack, is, in our experience, identical to the very instrument of desire, the phallus. I purposely say that the object of his lack in desire, whatever it may be, even if it is on a different plane to the genital plane, in order to be characterized as object of desire, and not object of this or that frustrated need, it has to come to the same symbolic place that the instrument of desire itself, the phallus, comes to fill out, i.e. this instrument, insofar as it is carried into the function of signifying. This is what, next time, I will show you to have been articulated by the poet, by Claudel, whatever with it he was, although, of course, he never in any way suspected the formulation his creation could become one day. That only makes it more convincing, just as it is utterly convincing to see Freud, in the interpretation of dreams, announcing the laws of metaphor and metonymy in advance. And why is this instrument carried into the function of the signifier? Precisely to fill out what I have just mentioned, this symbolic place. What is this place? Well, it is precisely the dead point, stalemate occupied by the already dead father. I mean the simple fact that, insofar as he is the one who articulates the law from behind which his voice can but falter. For just as well, either he creates a fault by his presence, or, as a presence, he is too much there. It is this point at which everything that is announced passes back through zero, between the yes and the no. It's not me that has invented this ambivalence between the pith and the zest, le ziste et le zeste. In case you think I'm speaking Chinese, between love and hate, between complicity and alienation. The law, to put it bluntly, in order to be installed into the law, requires as an antecedent the death of the one who sustains it. This is something that, for it to produce at this level the phenomena of desire, it is not enough to simply say it. It is for this reason that I endeavour to instigate in front of you these topological schemas that allow us to locate this radical gap. It grows, and the resultant desire is not simply this point, but it is something that can be called an ensemble within the subject. This ensemble about which I tried to mark out for you not only the topology in a paraspatial sense, the thing that illustrates it, but also the three phases of this explosion, phases of interpolation to begin with, at the end of which the configuration of desire comes to fruition. And you can see it branded into the generations, and it is for this reason that there is no need, in order to locate the composition of desire in a subject, to go through a recurrence in perpetuity right back to the father Adam. 3 generations is enough. In the first, the mark of the signifier. This is what the image of Cine de Coufontaine illustrates in the Claudelian composition. In the extreme and tragically, as it is carried right through to the destruction of her being, of her having been completely torn out from all that she is attached to by her word and by her faith. In the second phase, what results from it? For even on the poetic plane, things don't stop with poetry. Even with the characters created by Claudel's imagination, this leads to the birth of a child. Those that speak and are marked by speech engender. Something slides into place during the interlude, which is initially an infant. And this is Louis de Coufontaine, the second generation of totally rejected object, undesired object, object as undesired. How could it be composed, configured in our eyes in this poetic creation? What is going to be the result of the third generation, i.e., in the only true, I mean that it is also there in relation to all the others. The others are, of course, artificial dissolutions. These are the antecedents of the only one in which it is a question of how desire gets formed, between the mark of the signifier and passion for the partial object. Here is what I hope to articulate for you next time.